So, here we go. Welcome to the LIBERcast for this awesome episode about the secrets of the pyramid with David Eden Edwards. Welcome, dude. And I'm going to let you introduce your work and where you're coming from.
Thank you. Very pleased to be here.
So, I'm just going to do an announcement. First, I'm going to have the first LIBERcast French with another one. I'm just telling there. I'm going to tell it in French too. So, il va y avoir un podcast entièrement francophone, le premier du LIBERcast. Je vais avoir Charles Olivier. Il a écrit des livres sur les éco-villages, puis on va parler de la résistance, entre parenthèses. Fait que soyez là pour ce show-là. So, you won't tell us, David, how did you get in that? What's your story? What's your involvement in that?
No problem, Fred. First of all, bonjour tous les Français, tous mes amis. I had to think about that one. That's about all.
Nice.
All the French I know.
That's nice.
Right, my name's David Eden Edwards. You'll never have heard of me before unless you're one of my friends on Facebook. All I do is Facebook. I'm a bit of a Luddite, so I haven't produced any content other than a few YouTube videos, but I found that the powers that shouldn't be closed me down very quickly. I'd only put 3 videos up of half-hour videos of me talking, basically about what I'm going to be talking about today and in future episodes, because it's not going to all fit into one. And YouTube terminated my account. No warnings, no strikes, no explanation, just terminated my account. So I thought, well, there's no point in that. And I'm very pleased and very grateful that Fred invited me to the LIBERcast, because it's somebody else's responsibility to make sure it's all saved and secure and whatever, because I can't do it on my own. Like I say, I'm a Luddite. I know nothing. Anyway, first of all, let me tell you where I live. Fred, if you could pull up slide 31, it'd be lovely.
Which one?
Just to give a pretty picture to the audience.
31. Okay.
All right. Like I say, my name's David, and I'm very aware of allegorical things and how they appear. Although I've got no religious tie to my mind anymore, I can relate to various allegories and symbolic meanings wherever they occur. So should I appear to talk in a Christian way, it's got nothing to do with the Bible or anything. Should I appear to talk in an Islamic way, then it's got nothing to do with the Quran or what my local imams told me. I'm not tied. So let me just say that my name's David. I live at the top of St. David's Hill, and that you can see in front of you down to the right behind the dunes is Royal St. David's Golf Course. And the view there is from the local beauty spot, which is called Good God's Corner. And my house is just out of shot to the right. So my name's David. I live at the top of St. David's Hill, overlooking Royal St. David's Golf Course, sitting to the right hand of good God. Now, how's that? It's a little bit freaky, but I'm not claiming to be the Messiah or anything. I'm a very naughty boy. But it's nice to know that I'm on the right team of whichever allegory you take that as. At least I'm not on the left hand, being all sinister and whatever. So, yeah, that's Harlech Beach, Traumatic Bay, Mount Snowdon in the background. I'm in Snowdonia in North Wales. Right. I started off as a lad at a primary school and a middle school paddocks in rugby. Big shout out to Mr. Evans, the old headmaster, and Mr. Jones and Mrs. Ingalls, my old teachers. Love you loads. And I was always the clever boy in the class. Not necessarily so much the clever boy, but I was certainly the quick boy. So if we had lessons or whatever, quizzes, I'd always have my hand up quicker, and I'd always be the one that won all the competitions and stuff. Now, in a way, I wish I hadn't, because it made me a bit overbearing, and maybe I can appear to be a bit arrogant at times. But I believe we've all got a place on this world, and whatever your standard of education or your skills with your hands, it can all have value. And I believe that what I've got to tell you, being the summation of everything that I've learned in my life, has got great value. I'm not saying that I've got great value. I'm saying that what I've got to tell you has got great value. So even if you can't understand the information, because it might be a bit technical or whatever, bear with me, because I'm talking to people who, excuse me, who can understand it, but I'm also speaking to people who can't. So don't get turned off. Don't think, oh, I don't understand that. It's meaningless, because it will all come together like a tapestry at the end, and it'll all make sense. Or at least I hope it will. If it doesn't, it's my fault, because I haven't done my job correctly in explaining it. It won't be your fault for not being clever enough or experienced enough or knowledgeable enough in whatever field to understand it. Now, I've been very interested in occult matters, occult sciences in the last decade, shall we say. Although I have been researching occult organisations such as Freemasonry for much longer than that, because of the way it's affected my life. But I didn't actually understand or research the philosophies or the religion, if you want to call it that, which it should rightly be called a religion, until 8-10 years ago, something like that. Now, when I was 12, I left my nice little nest of a primary middle school to go to secondary school in Rugby. School called Lawrence Sheriff Grammar School for Boys, where we all had to wear uniforms and be the same. They were training us to be part of society rather than as little children. But on the second day I was there, I was sitting at my desk, and we had separate desks. We had a line of 3. I was on the left, then there was my friend Gareth, and then my friend Tim on the right towards the window. I had my hands down the side of the desk, leaning in like that. My friend Tim, seeing that I had my hands down the side in a bit of a vulnerable position, thought he'd have a laugh. And he pushed his desk against Gareth's, and Gareth moved and trapped my fingers. Really hurt. And as an instinctive move, I swatted Gareth, thinking it was him, and went straight across his face and made his nose bleed. Gareth thought that he didn't know that his desk had moved, and he thought I was just attacking him, so he started punching me, and I started defending myself. Now, it ended up, because obviously there was blood and everything, we all went to the headmaster and got caned. Now, I didn't like that very much, and at that point I thought, I don't want to be here. I'm only 12, and I don't like being hit with sticks. First time that's ever happened. And the reason I bring this up is because I didn't think it was fair. I didn't think it was just. Now, Fred and myself, the reason that we've contacted each other is because we're into natural law. And one of the natural law principles is the non-aggression principle, which means that you don't initiate violence onto somebody. But a corresponding principle is the principle of self-defense. And that is that if somebody does initiate violence against you, then you have the right to defend yourselves. Now, I only got 2 strokes of the cane. Gareth got 2 strokes of the cane. Tim got 3. which that was fair that Tim got more than me and Gareth because he initiated the violence. Whereas with my swipe to Gareth, I was just defending myself. And when Gareth hit me, he was defending himself against perceived attacks. But the point is, neither me or Gareth should have been there in the first place. It should have been Tim that got the cane, and me and Tim shouldn't have. But there you go. So that's introduced a natural law principle of non-aggression, which is a masculine principle, and the self-defense principle, which is the feminine corresponding. I have got that the right way round, haven't I, Fred?
Is it? What?
Non-aggression is the masculine, self-defense is the feminine.
Yes, actually, everything is masculine and feminine.
Yeah,
in nature.
It does sort of like mix, doesn't it? Well, and anyway, I just wanted to introduce that because natural law is a principle that we should apply every single person, every single man, every single woman, and it should be taught to every single child in schools throughout the land, throughout the world, as a matter of curriculum, as soon as they can understand it. I'm sure we've all heard when two kids get into a fight, the teacher or the mother says, "Who started it?" And no, they don't. I've said that wrong. Sorry. The kids say he started it, and the mother or the teacher says it doesn't matter who started it. That's the point. It does matter who started it. It matters very much. And for mothers, fathers, teachers, whatever, to say it doesn't matter who started it and to punish both, or in my case, all three, is wrong. And it sets a precedent in the child's life when they're being formatted, when they're being educated. And that principle carries on into later life and into governments, groups, and
submission, mostly.
Yeah, and philosophical paradigms that are screwing up the world. And this is one of the big reasons why we're in such a mess.
Yep.
Now, I've got the answer to this mess. And what I'm going to show you is something that I discovered about 2.5 years ago. And symbolically speaking, once we understand it and agree on it, then it solves all the world's problems. But I'm going to say now that the New World Order, the globalist totalitarian government that expresses itself by all governments across the world being in lockstep, see Operation Lockstep, Rockefeller, 1990 something. So they all act together in the same way. Some of them are worse, like Australia at the moment, rounding up the Aboriginals just because they happen to have tested positive and putting them into quarantine camps, aren't they? Yes, they're quarantine camps. They're for our health and our benefit, aren't they? They're not concentration camps. Oh, no. No, it's not a depopulation agenda. Oh, no. It's always two ways of looking at things, folks. And then we've got the lesser acting countries, like, for example, the third world, because they can't afford vaccines, and the average person can't afford face masks and stuff. So they're being let off a little bit. But the thing is, with this new globalist, communist, totalitarian agenda, when the first world collapses, the third world dies. And we're not hearing about the millions and millions of people that are starving at the moment in the third world. All we're hearing about is the supply chain difficulties, particularly in America, all those cargo ships sitting off the Californian coast, not being allowed in because of COVID. It isn't because of COVID, it's because of the government. It's the government that are making the decisions. COVID's got nothing to do with it. The government says that it's COVID, and that's why they're making their decisions, but they could make other decisions. But they work on what's called the plane of causation. They're making the decisions. And it comes into the plane of effects with what they're causing to happen. That they cause something and it takes effect in our lives. Now, This is what we've got to conquer if we want to conquer and defeat the New World Order, as we call it, is that we've got to start causing change and causing the New World Order not to have such effect. We can change the effects all we like. We can revolt and cause revolution, but the same causes and the same principles that exist now would exist whoever's in charge, unless we get to grips with the philosophy and the principles that we're dealing with.
Actually, it's simpler than that. It's the execution it's not easy, you know. When you have to push people to themselves, when you have to make people look themselves in the mirror, you know, because it's all about that.
Yeah. If you can't come to the understanding of what's happening in the mind, which is the plane of causation, the mental plane, the mental processes, the thoughts. If you can't come to terms with that, both in yourself and in the macrocosmic world of politics, economics, strategies, whatever, resource management, then literally we'll be just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic until it sinks. I was going to say forever then, but the Titanic is sinking.
Yep.
Now, I might be paranoid, or you might call me paranoid, but it is sinking. And
yes, the system is sinking.
Yep.
Yeah,
people might say, "Oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist." Well,
theorist? No, it's not theories anymore, and everybody knows.
It is sinking, and I can see a few people just down by the waterline who keep on bashing holes in it. So, if you want to call me a conspiracy theorist, call it me all you like. It doesn't really matter. The Titanic is sinking. Anyway, my discovery. If you could pull up slide number 8, please, Fred.
Yes.
And this is where it ties in with the symbolism of the New World Order and the mind, the plane of causation, everything that I seem to have said that may appear to be a little bit disjointed, all ties in to this diagram. One of my friends who used to live with me was fascinated by the Great Pyramid of Giza, and he had models of it all over the place, and he was always talking to me about it. And I even went to Peru in 2008 to help him build a scale model. Oh, I should have sent you that slide as well, Fred. Can I send you one quickly now and
yes.
put it up? I went to Peru in 2008 to help my friend build a 1/6 scale model of the Great Pyramid of Giza, which he was going to use as a floating, would you believe, floating? Well, you will believe it because you'll see it when Fred pulls that picture up. Floating on the River Amazon, no less. 7 stories high, 22.2 meters, including the Golden Ankh, 40 meters square. And he was going to use it as a shamanic healing center, a conference center, a retreat, an entertainment facility. It was absolutely mind-blowing, the scale of the project. That structure in the middle was his 3-bedroom house. And in that particular picture, I was reclining in my hammock on the balcony just outside his bedroom, which I jokingly named the King's Chamber, corresponding to the Great Pyramid. I was supposed to be the commander of the fleet that day because it was being towed across to the other side of the river. But my friend conveniently or inconveniently forgot to buy the walkie-talkies. So the commander of the fleet was out of a job, and the master of the vessel, my friend Julian, was standing on the corner there, as you can see, shouting his little voice off, not to much effect to the 3 tugboat captains, because they couldn't hear him over the revving engines. But like I say, I was lying in my hammock, enjoying the ride on the solar boat of Ra under the effects of ayahuasca, no less. So it was an absolutely wonderful day, flying across the sky and across the water with the gods.
Just want to interrupt you a little bit there. If I see there's people in on StreamYard. If you have comments or question, there's a section on your right. It says comments or private chat. Just put your question there if you have one.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to accommodate questions. If I don't want to speak about something straight away, then we can always put it off till the end.
Actually, you can do it on YouTube too. If you have question, you're listening on YouTube and you have question, you can show there. It's gonna appear on StreamYard.
Okay, Fred, stick it back over to slide number 8, please.
Yes.
Now, I discovered in April 2019, as you can see, that the Great Pyramid correlates to the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, you can see the electromagnetic spectrum on the right-hand side, and the lines that differentiate between the different types of radio waves, light waves, however you want to say the electromagnetic waves, correspond that they're level to the pinks and the reds, yeah? Now, you can't see the key very easily at the bottom, so let me explain that what's going on here is the colours are representative of the thicknesses of the stone layers in the Great Pyramid. Whilst the stones are all different sizes, the heights or the thicknesses of each layer are consistent throughout the layer. Now, these measurements are taken from a table that Sir William Matthew Flinders Petrie, FBA, FRS, one of the greatest respected Victorian Egyptologists, measured. I think it was up the northwest face of the Great Pyramid in Victorian times. But his measurements are still respected as being as accurate as you're going to get. So the electromagnetic spectrum wasn't discovered until the 17th, late 18th, 19th centuries, and finally finalized and fully defined by Heinrich Hertz et al. In 1925. So this is a question: how is it that the electromagnetic spectrum is literally written in stone in the Great Pyramid of Giza? Now, the answer to this question is what is going to save the world. And us not knowing the answer is what's causing the problems in the world at the moment. Now, I'll come back to that, Fred. But let me just go through some very interesting facts about the Great Pyramid before I explain that. And I'm going to bring up a copy of my book, which is actually a thriller a la Dan Brown style, because I think it's a little bit difficult for people to listen to it in a format where I'm just telling you, this is this, because they just switch off. I can't understand that. But if it's in a format where it's two other people, characters in a book speaking to each other, then they don't actually switch off. They just glance through it. Okay, I don't understand that, but I'm sure the characters in the book do. So they stick with it. And that's the idea. I want people to stick with it. So I'll just explain a bit about the book and then read it as it is. And then I'll probably fade off towards the end of it. So it's an excerpt or an adapted excerpt from the book The Cult of the Serpent and the Pyramid of Power, in which Ford Giza in quote marks, that's his nickname, Ford Giza Harrison, prodigy of Sir Peter Blandford, FRS, Professor of Cult Psychology at Bangor University, who has just been murdered in a very bloody incident on the Giza Plateau, explains to Special Agent Kelly White, who has taken him into protective custody, a la Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code style, why the world is under such threat, and outlines to her the strategy to restore balance before the cult, in capital letters, kills 90% of the world's population by releasing a viral bioweapon from a secret lab in China and initiating nuclear war by instructing its members in the Chinese government to invade Taiwan. So, Ford Harrison starts speaking. Righto, Kelly. This may take some getting your head round, but please don't interrupt. I'm going to tell you about the Great Pyramid of Giza and why it's so important to the cult. Now, if you think about the cult as being the NWO, the New World Order, you think about the eye and the triangle. Keep that in mind, everybody, yeah? If you don't understand the mathematics or the technical information, just let me flow. You don't need to understand it. You only need to appreciate the complexity of what I'm talking about and how it fits in with the overall perspective, okay? Sure, Giza, sure. Go on, she replied. Giza adjusted the top button and said, after I've given you the lowdown on the Great Pyramid, I'm going to explain about archetypes of mind, consciousness, emotion, conscience, the nature of things, and how humanity has understood and expressed such things down through the ages, and why this knowledge is the source of the cult's power. Now, I don't know if you've seen the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, but the Great Pyramid works in very much the same way. Once she works for the for SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Life, or it's Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, I should say. And she gets a binary message on the radio. It seems though it's coming from outer space. And once that binary message is understood as being prime numbers, so it's coming from intelligence, it's just a case of putting those numbers in a certain format, which means writing it down on a piece of paper and then folding the piece of paper so it becomes a three-dimensional cube, and then everything becomes clear, and the instructions to how to build a Stargate portal are revealed in reams and reams and reams of technical data. That's very much how the Great Pyramid works. I'm going to tell you about the visionary experiences that have been kept secret for the past 6,000 years and why it's so important that it's revealed and broadcast to the world as a whole before the cult kills us all. I just hope we can get to Joe Rogan before it's too late. Again, Kelly, just bear with me, yeah? Hear what I've got to say, and then if you've got any questions, we can talk about them when I've finished, okay? Kelly grinned. Sure. My mouth is shut and my ears are open. She suppressed a little giggle and settled back into the seat of the military jet they were using to cross the Atlantic Ocean. We've got 5 hours. Just get on with it, why don't you? Giza took a sip of the fine Courvoisier brandy that Brandon, the steward, had brought to his side a few minutes before. He relaxed and started to talk. Okay, here goes. Slide 1, please, Fred.
Yes.
The length of half of the base perimeter, that's 2 sides, yeah, of the Great Pyramid, divided by its height equals pi to the 4th decimal place. Now, the first evidence of man's knowledge of pi comes from the Rind papyrus, which is dated to 1650 BC. That's 1,000 years after we are told that the Great Pyramid was built, circa 2650 BC. But the figure given in the papyrus is not as accurate as that exhibited by the geometry of the Great Pyramid. Now, you may think it's odd that such a thing seems to have been known before it was officially documented as being discovered, and you'll probably be thinking to yourself that it's either just a coincidence, because that's what everybody keeps saying about these things, or that the knowledge was handed down from generation to generation until it was written down. But the secret societies will deny all this. You can rationalize it in whichever way you like, but that's just one thing, and probably the easiest to rationalize. But there's more, much more. Giza smiled knowingly and reached for another sip of brandy. It's not actually brandy, it's grapefruit juice, everybody. And I'd like to recommend this as an alternative to high blood pressure medication. I don't like big pharma if I can help it, but I had a turn earlier in the year and I was rushed into hospital with blood pressure of 230 over 170, put on 3 different types of blood pressure tablets, made me ill. So I've been trying this pink grapefruit juice, not from concentrate, obviously, just fresh. And I don't mind spending a tenner a week on it, and it does actually work. But don't take it with your blood pressure medication. It says on blood pressure medication, don't take grapefruit juice. Why not? Because grapefruit juice lowers your blood pressure, and they don't want to kill you by lowering it too much. They just want to keep you alive so that you keep on buying their medication. But I'd rather buy grapefruit juice. So cheers. And Geezer continued. Right. Slide 2, please.
Yes.
The area of the 4 sides of the Great Pyramid divided by the area of the base equals phi, which is called the golden ratio or the golden number, 1.618. ... carries on forever, just like pi, both irrational numbers. And if half of one base side is defined as 1 unit, then the length of the side slope is equal to phi to within 1/4 of 0.1%. These are the 2 most basic expressions of phi visible in the Great Pyramid, but there are so many others. I would bore you if I gave you a comprehensive list, although I'll shortly refer to it again in a bit when I talk about the King's Chamber. Now, I'm going to bring those in now and move away from the narrative in the book. So can you bring in slide 21, please, Fred? Yeah, cheers. Right, these 7 equations, as you can see, all contain phi, which is that symbol on the left-hand side. They're all phi squared, multiplied by square roots of different numbers. Now, these numbers are interesting because they all add up to 100. And supposedly, now I'm not going to state this as 100% fact. One thing you'll get from me, I only deal in facts, is that what I've heard is that there's 100 stones that make up the walls in the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. So these add up to 100, these square roots. And each of these equations comes up with a number, and those numbers correspond to different measurements in the Great Pyramid. And if you could pull up slide 22, please, Red. That's the Great Pyramid. That's the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, represented by that box. Now, here's what's interesting, is that those 7 dimensions, which all originate from 1 point, all emanate from 1 point, are measured in meters to the nearest millimeter in all directions. And they correspond to the answers to those 7 equations. So you've got a rainbow of numbers, a rainbow of colors, a rainbow of equations, if you like, a spectrum, yeah, which corresponds to the electromagnetic spectrum, or more to the point, to the visible light spectrum in the middle of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is what we can see around us. The visible light spectrum is what we recognize as matter. It's made up of light, of energy that has the wavelength frequency which converts to light and converts to matter. Now, this is what the Great Pyramid's all about: light and matter, about transforming light into matter and matter into light. I'll come back to that when I'll go back to the book and carry on reading from that, and then we can talk about that afterwards. But before I do that, can you just pull up slide number 33, please?
33. 33?
33. The last one I sent you.
Oh, okay. Yes. Here we go.
It's very interesting that the Great Pyramid's slope angles, the corner and the side, match the angles necessary to perceive a rainbow optically.
Incredible.
It's the angles that our eyes see. So the top of the rainbow is at 51.84 degrees, and the bottom of the rainbow is at 42 degrees.
Incredible.
42 degrees, as you can see, is the corner slope, and the phi there, 51.84 degrees, that's the angle of the side slope. I'd just like to give a big shout out to my friend Rich Jarvis, who designed this lovely graphic, whose page can be seen at the bottom. Welcome to the Golden Page. That's on Facebook. He's got a group and a page. Well worth checking him out. He's got a load of information on there. Okay, so back to the book. And all right, yeah, might as well leave that on until the end of the paragraph. So we're talking about phi. The first known written record of phi was not until around 300 BC, when Euclid published Elements, although it's accepted that he drew on knowledge handed down from those before him. So that's an introduction to pi and phi. Now, here's where it all gets really freaky, and you won't be able to rationalize it other than by saying it's all a coincidence. But hear me out and I'll explain. Just take it from me before I start that it is not just all a huge coincidence. Righto, slide 3, please, Fred.
Yes.
The speed of light is 299,792,458. That's 299,792,458 meters per second to within a tolerance of error in our ability to measure it. Yeah, that means it's as close as we're ever going to get it. This measurement, or at least it's as close as we're ever going to get it with the technology that we've got at the moment. I believe they think it's something like correct to within 2 parts in a million. This measurement was not made until the 1970s by Everson et al. Using laser interferometry, and was not agreed and standardized until 1983. The apex of the Great Pyramid lays at 29.9792458 degrees latitude north to within a tolerance of error in our ability to measure it. But the first global positioning satellite was not launched until 1978. Now, I'd just like to tell everybody that if you go to Snopes and all these fact checks, they'll give you various reasons as to why the speed of light can't correlate to the apex of the Great Pyramid, i.e. because it wasn't measured until 1970, and the Great Pyramid was built 2,700 years ago, BC. But that isn't a reason as to why it isn't, because it is. I don't care what Snopes say. Like I say, we're just dealing facts. The Great Pyramid, the apex of the Great Pyramid, does whatever they say it can't, it does lay at 29.9792458 degrees latitude north. So don't be distracted by these damn fact checkers. I'm sure you're all aware of how they mislead and this missing context and all this sort of stuff. You're getting it now with all the COVID, yeah. But just always stick with the facts. Now, slide 4, please, Fred. Now, if you draw a circle around the base of the Great Pyramid so that all 4 corners touch the circle, and then draw a circle inside the base so that it touches all 4 sides, and then measure the 2 circles in meters and subtract the lesser number from the greater, you are left with 299.792,458 meters to within a tolerance of error in our ability to construct the geometry and to measure it. Now that's about 3/4 of an inch error per base side, according to Flinders Petrie's estimated measurements, bearing in mind that the outer cover stones are no longer present. But like I said before, he's still considered by modern Egyptologists Egyptologists and the field of science that his measurements are pretty damn close. There's no point in getting even closer. So it's within what engineers call a tolerance of error. Okay, they know it's in error, but it's tolerable. So we've got the speed of light in metric indicated at both the apex and the base of the pyramid. So you can think of that as heaven and earth if you want, sky and ground, top and bottom, up and down, two polar concepts, whatever scale you want to think of it as. But it's not exactly heaven and earth, but you can think of it for now as that. But the meter was not defined until 1793. No, it isn't impossible. You'll understand in a bit. Hope you will. Geezer took yet another sip of his brandy. Cheers. And grinned as he continued.
So keep in mind that you can come back, listen to it again if we're getting. I'm getting lost a little bit in the numbers now, but you can come back whenever you want. It's gonna be on YouTube. It's gonna be on MeWe. It's gonna be on BitChute. It's gonna be on Library and Odysee.
Yeah, this is where you're gonna get really lost. But like I say, and like the characters in the book are trying to say, just bear with it. Basically, I'm just trying to point out that it's all about light and matter, all about converting matter into energy. It's a bit like the CERN Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. But once we get past the next couple of paragraphs, which are really, really technical, then we can go back to it being easy. So, Kelly, this is where it gets outer space freaky. Probably the most sophisticated, least understood, but most important number in modern physics is known as the fine structure constant or the Sommerfeld constant. Among many other applications, it is defined as the amplitude necessary for a photon of light to emerge into material reality, which incidentally the Large Hadron Collider at CERN finally caused to happen only last year. The first physical interpretation of the Sommerfeld constant was as the ratio of the velocity of the electron in the first circular orbit of the relativistic Bohm atom to the speed of light in a vacuum. The Sommerfeld constant is calculated as 1 over just a touch over 137, although the number 137 is sufficient to communicate symbolically the idea of the constant to any modern quantum or particle physicist. Now, number 5, please, Fred. The base diagonal of the Great Pyramid plus the height divided by 2 base sides plus 1 side slope equals the Sommerfeld constant to a degree of accuracy of 99.9998%. The Sommerfeld constant may also be found in the King's Chamber in at least 2 ways. Now, this is what ancients liked to do. In Hermetic philosophy, we've got the saying, the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. Or in this context, as within, so without. They like to express the same concept inside and outside, or above and below. It ties the two together, and it tends to show in the language of symbolism that it's not coincidence, that it's an intentional correspondence that's made, and that we're to look at it as a message. So the volume of the King's Chamber divided by the volume of the sarcophagus in the King's Chamber equals 137.5, which incidentally is known as the golden angle when expressed in angular degrees. That's the golden ratio of the circumference of a circle, and refers once again to phi, the golden ratio. The amount of matter, granite, in the sarcophagus is strangely exactly equal to the amount of space within it, So if one subtracts the half volume of matter, 0.5, from the 137.5, one is left with the inverse of the Sommerfeld constant, 137. Also, the square of the floor diagonal of the King's Chamber in meters is also equal to the inverse of the Sommerfeld constant to the second decimal place. And again, if we're talking about the dividing the amount of space in the King's Chamber by the amount of granite in the sarcophagus, once again, notice that it's all about matter and space, or energy and matter. The Sommerfeld constant is the product of equations which are functions of the following constants: the elementary charge, pi, the Planck constant, the reduced Planck constant, slide number 6, please, Fred, the electric constant or permittivity in vacuum or free space, the magnetic constant or permeability in vacuum or free space, the Coulomb constant, the von Klitzing constant, or the impedance of vacuum or free space. And yes, you guessed it, the speed of light. The Sommerfeld constant was not defined and quantified until 1916. Now, I just asked you to pull that slide up, and I'm not going to give you the equation because I haven't got it written down in the book. So I do apologise to that, everybody. I'll give you a reference for that underneath or in the next show or something. Now, I hear you all ask, what does all that mean? What relevance does it have? Well, like I said, don't get put off by the maths and technical information. I don't understand all of it either. I'm not a particle physicist, quantum physicist. I've obviously had a look into these things, and I'm a relatively intelligent chap. But I don't profess to have any idea about how to express these things in language. All I know is that it's very, very complicated. I know people who can understand what's going on, but it's all just to do with the design of the portal from heaven to earth and earth to heaven. Now, it's all about consciousness. All you've got to be able to do is accept that the chances of all information that I've so far illustrated being embodied in the Great Pyramid is less than 1 to all the atoms in the Milky Way. That's more than the chances of winning the Euro Million jackpot 8 weeks in a row. And with all the other information that we currently know that I haven't given you yet, that's embodied in the Great Pyramid, the chances of it being a random coincidence is less than 1 to the number of all the atoms in the observable universe, which is like winning the Euro Millions more than 10 weeks in a row. So, is it all a coincidence, or is there conscious and deliberate design at play? That's a question which you and you alone, each individual, is free to ponder. But let me tell you that the diagram that I first showed you, my diagram, which is the diagram like in the film Contact, that puts all of this into context, is about electromagnetism. We occupy the material world, which is made up of the visible light spectrum, but all around us is a magnetic field, electromagnetic field. So when you understand that, and when you understand how it relates, that we are all part of it, so we're all connected, but we're all individuals as well, that polarity, that dual interpretation of our presence, that we're physical bodies and we've got spirits, energy bodies, whatever, that are all connected. This is where the understanding, the balance of everything comes in. Now, we're running out of time today, probably, so I'll have to come back to this next time, probably. But it's all to do with the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, all to do with the sacred masculine and sacred feminine principles, concepts. and how true vision and true consciousness is only gained when we perform what's called the alchemical wedding of the two halves of the brain, or the two principles, which is logic and emotion.
Yes.
And this is why the world's in such a state, is because they've polarized they've split our minds and polarized our minds into two different paradigms of thought. You've either got the purely logical intellectual, which is what the New World Order are employing, because they are so childish that they haven't grown up yet past the, oh, if I ruled the world, if I had all the money in the world. They haven't grown up to the point at which in our development we say, well, if I ruled the world, if I had all the money in the world, well, I'd give it to somebody else, or I'd share it, or I'd make sure that everybody else was okay. They would rather kill us all and take everything and rule the world and not give a damn about everybody else or about how we feel. And because they don't care about, they've got no conscience. And this is how they've gained their power over the last 6,000 years, because of the secrecy in the mystery school traditions and secret societies.
Yes.
It's been corrupted because, and you've only got to read their own literature, because they have got to give up their conscience. It's all part of the rituals. They swear blood oaths to lie and to cover up things for their brothers, and to give their brothers hands up the ladder in life and in business. But what they don't tell you is that people outside of the brotherhoods or the traditions, the mystery schools, secret societies,
we all know about these ritual, like Bohemian Grove, the sacrificing of the care, immolation of the care.
Absolutely, Fred. I was going to send you the slide of Bohemian Grove with the.
I'll get one. You want me to get the owl?
Yeah. Go for it. That Alex Jones infiltrated a few years ago. This is a grove, a ritual that all the world's leaders go to every year. They got pictures of Henry Kissinger, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, for various people, and they all go to immolate the care, to get rid of their conscience as human beings. So we are being polarized and separated as a species into two different types of human beings: the ones who care and the ones who don't care. And the ones who don't care are the psychopaths. They're the ones that dress up like James Bond villains and tell us that in a few years we're going to own nothing and be happy. Well, let me tell you this, Mr. Schwab, in a few years' time, you will own nobody and you will be unhappy. You may take our lives, but you will never take our freedom. Over my dead body.
Oh yes, sure. And I wanted to bring this image because it's very telling. Okay, we are still in medieval time in mindset. We're still worshiping idols. It's not bulls anymore. It's not Bell anymore, but it's a celebrity, Hollywood kind of cultish. We're idolating politicians. We're idolating singers, rock stars, and things like that. It's all a when you look just into the hedonist cult, it's all about pleasure, flesh, and debauchery. So this is what they're all about. They don't care about anyone. So I want to bring what my mentor said, Mark Passio said in one of his podcasts, that this kind of psychopath, they they know they're different, so they want to make the world as theirs, like like they are really like hollow. They cannot feel anything. They don't care about your rights. They don't care about your, and you see it everywhere, and it's growing even in the population. It's getting bad
Yeah,
because people are so confused, so fearful of everything. They cannot think clearly in that situation, in that context, and it's really really dangerous.
absolutely. Can you see the picture that I've just sent you in Facebook message box? Could you pull that one up,
Let me
which
see.
relates to this whole
Yes.
ritual of cremation of care and offering the children to the
Yes, Moloch.
Canaanite god of Molech?
Yes.
I believe the
Here we
god is
go.
actually called Molech and
Molech.
can be expressed as either an owl, like the Bohemian Grove, or as a bull, like in this image. And I believe that the term Moloch is actually referring to the ceremony of the giving of the children to the god. So here we have Pfizer, the god of evil, that the Food and Drug Administration are handing our children over to, um, in them supporting the law, the mandate, can't call it a law, the fake ass mandate that says that all the kids from 5 to 11 have got to be vaccinated, and it will go from age 5 down to 2, and then it will go from 2 to 6 months, and then it will be
They
newborn.
already they are already vaccinating the mothers, the pregnant women. So it
Yeah,
doesn't matter anymore, you know. They're
yeah,
already like have the sludge into them.
yeah. And then you've got all these news organisations bowing down at the altar and saying exactly what the controllers want them to say, with the CDC being one of the main priests with his arms open, giving glory to the FDA and to Pfizer, the god of Molech, and CNN and ABC being the television,
The new priesthood.
yeah, beating their drums of propaganda. This is an amazing cartoon
Yes.
of our society at the moment. I absolutely love this image. The only thing is that they should, if you can see in the background, behind the FDA, there's actually the crowd of people who are watching the rest of the people, the population. I think they could have put a FB for Facebook up behind that. But
Yeah, the
there
small
we go.
people.
Yeah. Right. So I'll just read the last page of the book, and we'll introduce the couple more images, and then if you think it's gone on too long, Fred, then we can
Well,
sort of wrap.
we can you can finish what you're doing, and then we can like do a second one. We
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Just give me the nod when you want me to finish, and give me 5 or 10 minutes notice or whatever. So, how does this all relate to the spirit, to matter, to light, to energy, and more to the point, to ancient Egypt? Well, the ancient Egyptians believed that the process of mummification and the associated ritual of the opening of the mouth was to separate Pharaoh's spirit from his body and to transform it from physical matter into such light energy as was necessary to transport him to heaven and to sit at the right hand of Osiris. And I use that term lightly at this point, but just so you get the idea. And whilst mainstream Egyptologists, or quackademics, as John Anthony West, rest in peace, called them, insist on the Great Pyramid as being the tomb of Khufu, there was no mummy found inside, and there's absolutely no corroborating evidence to support this theory, no matter how much the quackademics stamp their feet over the issue. Contextually speaking, from pyramid texts and other writings and papyri, the Book of the Dead, etc., coming forth by day, the Papyrus of Ani, and a few others, it's far more likely that the mummification process took place in the temple at the end of the causeway by the river that leads to the pyramid, and that Pharaoh's body was only taken in for the ritual of the opening of the mouth, so his spirit could be sent to heaven, before the body was removed once more and given the standard burial process that we see in all of the cases throughout Egyptian history. No pyramid, and I'll repeat that, no pyramid has ever had a mummy discovered inside it, other than one which was placed in Menkaure during, and that's the smaller of the three pyramids of Giza, by the way, which was placed there in Roman times. So you can now appreciate that the Great Pyramid was all to do with transforming body matter into spirit energy, or more specifically, light, and for transportation of said spirit to and from heaven. We've got the speed of light at the top, speed of light at the bottom, visible light in between, in the electromagnetic spectrum, which joins heaven and earth, which joins the top and the bottom. Remember I said about it joining the two hemispheres of the brain, the two concepts of individuality and collectivism. Hitler said the collective good over the individual good. And that's the problem with the New World Order. Like I say, another way of expressing it is that they're collectivists and that the individuals have no rights. Whereas the correct way of looking at it is individual over the collective. All rights come from the individual. All rights are defined by the individual. As Mark Passio says, get two people, forget about the rest of the world, get two people, and what is a right between those two, and anything that's not a wrong is a right, anything that those two have got the right to do, the whole world as a collective has got the right to do. But anything that they haven't got the right to do to each other, the whole world hasn't. It doesn't matter how many people you get together, how big a Nazi army, how big a fighting force as the United Nations New World Order has got. It doesn't make any difference. The individual is always right. And this is again the care principle, the conscience principle. The collective has never got a conscience. It's never got the care, but the individual always has the care and conscience, because we're the human beings. We are what makes up the collective. So we are the ones, and it's no better expressed than in Native American culture, is that if the war band, the war chief, the collective wanted to go to war, every warrior had the individual choice not to go to war. The individual is sovereign. The individual's choice, based upon his logic, or his or her, their logic, and the application of their conscience. Yes, this is the most logical thing to do, the most scientific thing to do, but is it the right thing to do? And it's that balance that's the alchemical wedding between the two concepts of the two hemispheres, that every single person, individual, has to perform on themselves. And this is why we're being brainwashed, because we've been polarized. Our minds have been split. We haven't got a clue about right and wrong, about natural law. It's all been taken away from us, and we just believe what the government says and do what the government says, because it's the easiest, because we don't have to have the responsibility as sovereign individuals to make our own decisions, and people will fight you so that they don't have to make their own decisions. Anyway, getting a bit emotional.
Yes, we can stop it there, and then I know there's a lot of stuff to say in the second, and we're probably make a third one, depending how it goes for.
Can I just finish reading the last two paragraphs, Fred?
Oh yes, sure.
It sort of like ties it in.
Okay.
So so I'll say about it being the tomb of Khufu, which they think, because it's been called the horizon of Khufu, but there's been an alternative interpretation among certain circles that Akhet or Ikhet Khufu, which is how it's pronounced and appears in the texts and in carvings, hieroglyphics. There's been an alternative interpretation among certain circles that it actually means light of Khufu, or even glory of Khufu. for at least a century and probably much longer among the wisdom keepers, and this has recently been confirmed beyond much reasonable doubt by the great observation skills of the renowned Egyptian tour guide Mohammed Ibrahim, who recently noticed a subtle difference in the hieroglyphs that supports this assertion. Now, this is to tie it into everything. Remember at this point that not only were the ancient Egyptians worshippers of Osiris, the sun god, in the later dynasties, but pretty much all religious cults down through the ages, right up until the present day, have been worshippers of not only the sun or the associated sun god, but of light itself, Zoroastrianism, etc. Is this simply because visible light protects us from making approaching enemies visible, providing warmth and supplying crops with all the energy that they need to grow? Oh no, that isn't all there is to it. There's also a wavelength frequency of light that lays beyond the usual visible spectrum, and it is to this that at least equal attention must be paid. Remember in the old cartoons when a character had an idea, it was often symbolized by a light bulb appearing above its head. When someone is daydreaming, we may say that the light's on, but there's nobody at home. Have you ever noticed that your friends or your lover's eyes seem to light up somehow when they are happy and looking at you? Not like a laser beam or headlights from a car in the fog, but more like a type of light that isn't travelling in a wave. These are not coincidences. The secret societies, the mystery schools, the religious traditions, the people who would control us, they know the vast majority of all this, and it's referred to in certain circles as the hidden light, and it's this that Freemasons refer to as the light of Freemasonry. It's what the Illuminati refer to as the illumination. It's what the Enlightenment is all about, the period in the Renaissance. It's all about consciousness and knowledge, yeah? And it's also what they mean by the spirit world. The spirit world and heaven, they're not places. Heaven and hell aren't places in the sky or under the ground. Heaven and hell are different frequency, wavelengths, bands of the electromagnetic spectrum. All this was made perfectly apparent to me once I'd made the discovery and thinking about it. And I'll give you some great imagery in the next one and a short video to explain it. We'll come back to it, but let me just say that it's non-ordinary visible light, that you can see it in certain circumstances, that correlates to what we refer to as consciousness, and it is this that the third eye is for. And when you talk about being awakened or conscious, whatever, or the third eye being open, it's not just realizing that one political party is wrong and the other political party is right. It's not just understanding that politics as a whole is wrong. It's about understanding the connection in the individual between the two hemispheres that causes this consciousness, which everything relates to. Politics, history, it all gives context. It all makes sense once you accept that we're not separate. We are separate beings, but we're separate and connected at the same time.
Yep.
Once that's understood, that's where consciousness comes into it. And that's where unity consciousness comes into it, because the Great Pyramid is a unity consciousness generator. This is why Freemasons and other secret societies always say, be of one mind, because they are unified in consciousness. We are separated. I hear people like Alex Jones, David Icke, and many, many other activists, and my friends such as Johnny. I'll give him a shout out. Hi, Johnny Mac. This is what I'm talking about. Unity consciousness. Now, the Great Pyramid, this is the field of battle. They say, people are beginning to say, this is a spiritual war. Yes, it is. But understand that spiritual isn't something that appears in the Bible or in the Quran or in other stories. It's a very, very scientific. It means it's a war of energies, a war of good and evil energies. It's a war of truth and lies, of eternal forces that would keep us and sustain us forever, and involution forces that would divide and destroy us and hate us. I'll explain all this later. I hope that that I've got that into at least into some sort of like format that people might be understand. But understand this, that it's no coincidence that the serpent in the biblical Garden of Eden deceived Eve into eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge. What is the fruit of the tree of knowledge? Power. That's what we're fighting. Unabridged power. And it's got stuck in our throats, this fruit of the tree of knowledge. Now, allegorically, God didn't, and I say allegorically because it was all written by the Jews and confirmed by the Romans, and it's all about propaganda that they're the chosen people and that the Romans' might is right and whatever. It's all an allegory, but nonetheless, the apple has got stuck in our throats, well and truly stuck. And it's no coincidence that the serpent has been referred to as Satan, and that Satan is associated with this spiritual presence called Lucifer, who is the light bearer or the light bringer. And that very same imagery equates with Thoth or Hermes, the ancient Egyptian and Greek gods of wisdom, who were understood to be the messengers of the gods carrying messages to and from heaven. And as I've written at the end of this bit of the book, you're starting to get it yet? Stay with me, or rather, come back next episode for next week's installment, or however you want to say it. And I think it might bear, and judging by how long it's taken to get this bit out of the way, Fred, I think it might be slightly more than 2 or 3.
Yes, probably.
It might be a series of 4, 5, or 6, but we'll see how it goes. But thank you very much for having me. And if anybody's got any questions, please either feel free to ask them on the ask them now if you want to. If we've got time to take a question or two, if anybody's got any. Otherwise, come to my Facebook page, David Eaton Edwards, or Neo's Facebook page, or leave them in the comments under the YouTube video.
David Eaton Edwards on Facebook if you have question. If not, just comment your the YouTube or the LIBERcast on Facebook or library, and I'll do my best to answer your question. So thank you very much, David, to taking the time to expose these incredible information, this incredible wisdom. Thank you for taking the time to share with us. So we
absolutely no need to thank me, Fred. It's a moral responsibility. We've got to fight this this new world order and the philosophy that it is trying to impose upon every single one of us, for the sake of not only the 90% of current world's population that it wants to cull, but on behalf of all of the children of the future. And like I say, everybody, I'm not trying to big myself up. I'm trying to big the information up, which has come down from heaven, from the mental plane of causation. If we want to beat this new world order, I do know how. I've been thinking about it for 32 years, how to deconstruct the philosophy, how to replace it with an alternative system, which we always must do. There's no point in destroying what we've got unless you've got something better to put into it. I know how to do this, people. We haven't got much time left. All I'd like to ask is that if anybody knows any of Mark Passio, Alex Jones, David Icke, Joe Rogan, Nassim Haramein, Archbishop Carlo Maria Viganò, and a few others, but that'll do for now. Oh, Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. If anybody knows any of these people, get them in touch with me, because part of the solution to this is a worldwide conference. I don't just mean each and every one of us putting a separate presentation together in a linear fashion, which is how conferences nowadays are usually presented. That's not a conference. That's just a progression of different
presentations.
Views. I know the people that we need to get together, and I can guide the people in the principles where the principles of this thing would take up a whole show, Fred. You know, we're talking about moral relativism, secrecy, willful lying, social Darwinism, you know the score.
Eugenism, eugenics, and things like that. So there's a lot of things to cover there. Yeah. So we're going to stop
it for so many years now, though, Fred, because of being under attack personally. And I was going to show people, as you know, the thing that I was taken to court for, and the concentration camp and the incinerator that was built near my hometown. We'll do that next time.
Yes.
Suffice it to say that for doing a hunger strike on the top step of my town hall for 33 days to expose Masonic corruption in both the council housing department and in the building and the granting of the permit to the local cement works to burn any and all organic matter, live human beings not accepted. For doing that, I was thrown into prison, into cell number 3, landing number 3, spur number 3, house block number 3 for 3 months, where I was burnt alive in my cell like Giordano Bruno at the stake as a political prisoner, a religious prisoner. I know how these people operate. I've been to the High Court. I know how to deconstruct it philosophically and strategically. And I don't want to be a leader. My friend Johnny Mack keeps on saying, we need a leader. No, we don't, Johnny. We need philosophy. We need strategy and everybody to come together and be of one mind, because that's how we've got to fight it. We've got to use their strategy and turn it on its head. And yeah, we'll discuss all this later on, Fred. But please, if anybody knows Mark Passio, David Icke, Alex Jones. David and Alex are talking about this electromagnetic war. I don't know why they've come up with it recently. I think it must have been the 5G or whatever. But it's getting into people's, into the psyche, into certain people's psyches now. And I can explain it all. And I can, tell you how it's
going. We didn't talk about there's a kind of thing. Just give me 2 minutes. I'm going to let you.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm not trying to big myself up. I don't want to be a leader. I just want to share the knowledge of what I've got. And I'm not going to get distracted by getting into arguments about the problems. All I'm into is solutions. I must say about Neoplatonism, this is part of the philosophy, or it's the root of the philosophy of where we're at the moment. Neoplatonism, Plato wasn't a great philosopher. He was the father of authoritarianism. He wanted his republic, his state, to take the children and turn them into super soldiers so that the parents didn't even know who their kids were. That was Plato. Read up on him. It's worth it. And then a few hundred years later, in his academy, in his school, there were some guys, Dionysius, Plotinus, who said that in order to bring about this Romanized, forceful, totalitarian state, that they'd use mysticism and the skills of mysticism. And this is why spirituality and the state are inextricably linked and joined. And the separation of the state, or the principle of separation of the state, that's only for you to believe, people. It's not real. That's the joining of the spirituality, the religion, if you want, and the state. That's where the problem is. And this is why they're going to institute a new one world religion. I can tell you what that's all going to be about as well. And this is where the one money comes into it, the one currency, because money is a religion. This is where just the belief in power, the belief that government has got the right to control our minds. It hasn't. It can't control, well, it can control our minds, or it can control the minds of a lot of people. But for some reason, it's not controlling mine. Not anymore, and never again. But yeah, Neoplatonism, this philosophy, it's what the United Nations is all about. It came through Theosophy in the late 1800s, which was and still is a Luciferian doctrine, which wants to rule the world and under Luciferian principles, inversion, lies, whatever. And Alice Bailey, one of the most well-known theosophists, next to, say, Helena Petrova Blavatsky. Alice Bailey started off this publishing company called Lucifer Trust, but it's now been changed to Lucis Trust. And they're a consultative organisation with the United Nations, always were, and they still are. And this is why United Nations operates under esoteric, or if you want, occult principles. And I'd just like to say, I should have said at the beginning, occult doesn't mean evil, it just means hidden. And it's the people that are hiding it that's evil, because they're using the differential of knowledge to have power, the fruit of the tree of knowledge, over us. It's what it's all about. But we can beat it, people. I know how. Solidarity, unity, we'll be back. Can't hear you, Fred. Can't hear you, Fred. Can't hear you.
I forgot to put my mic on. So yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you again, David, for this fascinating podcast. We're gonna organize. Actually, we're already working on the second one. So it's gonna be full of stuff. Be there. It's gonna be super interesting and super creepy at the same time, because the story of David, it's something. So take care and see you very soon. Actually, I'm gonna make an announcement in French. Alors, je rappelle tout le monde, les francophones, ceux qui sont sur ma page, qui ont écouté la vidéo jusqu'au bout. Demain, mercredi, à 10h le matin, je vais recevoir Charles Olivier pour une discussion sur les éco-villages et la résistance. Fait que soyez là, puis ça va être super intéressant. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Same time, same place.